Hey everybody, this is Mrs. Cassell.
And Mr. Coker.
We are your librarians here at North Thurston High School. So we're visiting your class today virtually because alas, we cannot be there in person today, but this might be better, honestly.
Maybe.
We're just a pack of trouble. So we're going to talk about your project learning about news and media throughout history. So here's something that I want to tell you that I learned recently, which is that news is actually an acronym. It stands for notable events, weather, and sports.
Really?
Oh. Mm-hmm. So turn to your neighbor and take a second right now. Does this sound reasonable to you? I mean, like, that's an acronym for news. That's where the word came from. Turn to your neighbor, give him a little, like, little, thumbs up, nod, shake your head. No? What do you think? Does it sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
Got lots of gestures there. So, and then my second question for you is, do you believe me? I'm your librarian telling you this. Why, if I tell you something like this, do you actually believe it? Because that's a second question that's not related.
Or me, for that matter. Do you believe me?
I don't know. You're wearing glasses. People who wear glasses are trustworthy, aren't they? So, but you're also bald, so.
Yeah. And half my face is covered with a mask.
That's true.
So it's harder to read.
So news doesn't stand for notable events, weather, and sports. That's what's called a folk etymology. So it's an adjective form of the word new. It appeared in the 14th century. So for a long time.
Wait a minute. What you told me wasn't true?
I lied to you.
Wow.
It sounded very believable, right? Because it makes sense.
It did.
Yeah. Okay. You believe me for lots of reasons, right? I'm your librarian. I have authority and expertise, and we work with a systematic arrangement where you trust me to honor that and to use my authority to help you. So that's one of the things you have to consider when you hear new information. Why do you believe it, and can you believe where it's coming from? So I learned this folk etymology that's incorrect. I watched it on a YouTube video, and the person who made that YouTube video heard it on TikTok. And as we all know with things on TikTok, who knows where they come from before they get there? So
no idea.
No idea whatsoever. So you guys are learning about the news right now, and you're going to start this research project here. So just because I'm bringing a new flavor of nerd to the library, research is a word. It comes from Old French. The re part means intensive force. I thought re just meant like do it again, because that's what re means on almost every word in English, but it means intensive force. This intentional extra effort is required. And chercher,
which is French.
It is. I don't speak French, by the way. But it means to go about seeking. The word to search means to go. So you have to be moving places and you go about seeking. So research is hard work. There's not just a simple one-step solution to find the answer to a research question you have. It requires intensity. It requires repetition. It requires you to have a purpose and a goal, and to actually search. And notice I put repetition in there twice on purpose. So
right, and one of the things you guys have to remember is research has always been hard work that requires intensity, intention, repetition, reading, etc., but it's harder now than it used to be. You guys are going to be studying a little bit about the history of news and information and where it comes from, and I think at this point we can all appreciate that there's so much more information out there coming from so many different places in so many different formats that figuring out what you can trust and what you shouldn't trust is much, much, much more challenging than it used to be. So you guys, if you talk to your parents, you talk to adults, often they'll say, oh, you have it so easy now. Please correct them, because you don't. It's harder for you guys. You have to be way smarter, way more sophisticated than my generation had to be, or your parents' generation, or your grandparents' generation. But we're going to keep working on getting better at it.
So a basic definition of research is a creative and systematic work that's undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. So systematic means that you've got a plan, that there's sort of guidelines or parameters that you're using to help make decisions. Creative part means that you, the user, you have to think about and make decisions while you're researching. Stock of knowledge is about this idea that there's not just one answer, there's multiple pieces of information that we combine to create knowledge. And then the word work is hidden in there again. It's hard work to actually research something. So this is one of the things Mr. Coker taught me a long time ago, which was that research is reading. It's not this, right? I just I typed in what is research into Google, and this is just a screenshot of what comes up.
Right.
And you'll see that there seems to be a lot of different information here. We got a definition. What do you know? Here's the old French definition that's there. There's examples. Here's the first sentence from Wikipedia. Down here, there's a link to a college website. But this right here, this isn't research. This does not actually constitute that creative or systematic work done to increase the amount of knowledge that I have about a topic.
Right. I define what Ms. Cassell did here, not as research. This is called finding stuff, which people do all the time. We find stuff, and we call it research, but it's not. Research is, as has been clearly stated already, an intensive process. Finding stuff is easy. Research is hard.
Mm-hmm. So, with that, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Coker to talk a little bit about,
Talk a little bit about how Google search works.
Yeah, versus research.
Versus research. And as I mentioned, Google's really good at finding stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The way Google basically works is Google looks at what has been posted in the publicly accessible web. All right, stuff you don't have to pay for and things like that. And it essentially sends what are called spiders, right?
Crawlers, yeah.
Crawlers,
mm-hmm.
Into this giant, massive, ever-growing pile of relatively random information and tries to make sense of it. And it's pretty good at it, too. And it takes cues from what you do and what you've searched for in the past, and what you put in the search box is also key to that. The important thing to remember when you're performing a Google search is, and I always try to remind people, you're not searching everything. It's an important thing to remember. You're actually searching a tiny fraction of what's available on the internet. What I always try to liken it to is an iceberg. All right. The way the internet works and the World Wide Web works, and this is a whole other topic which we can spend a ton of time on, and I can go on and on about for hours. But think of the internet as the iceberg. All right. That's all the stuff that's online, available in some way, shape, or form. The stuff on the World Wide Web, the free stuff, the openly public stuff that Google actually searches, is like the tip of the iceberg. It's what's available above the surface. What we're going to ask you to start to think about when you do research, especially online research now, is how to get below the surface of the iceberg, below that part you're able to see on the top, and access a lot of the good stuff that's down below and not necessarily visible in a Google search. And we're going to start to do that in a really easy process with this assignment with Mr. Garrow. But, if you're taking anything away from this, we want you to understand that a Google search is not all-encompassing. It's actually very, very, very superficial. And when you're doing research, and especially as a student, as you get more advanced in school, you have to understand that if you're going to be successful. Because you're missing a lot if you're only doing a Google search.
Totally true. So, let's skip through that. All right. Databases at Northwestern. Do you want me to
I'll talk about this. All right. So, here's a real simple concept. Actually, why don't you talk about paywalls?
About paywalls?
Yeah,
So, stuff's not free, right? So, a paywall is where there's a break in between content that's publicly available, right? You guys have all done this. You've seen YouTubers that will have content, and then they've got a website somewhere else where they've got the extended cuts of their content or other information. There's video games that do that, right? There's content that everybody can play, but then there's a point where if you want to play more or access certain parts of the game, you have to pay. That's a paywall. And so, you think about what happens if you walk into a store. Every item you see is basically behind a paywall. If you want to take it home with you, you have to pay for it. That's very different than when you walk into our library, for example. What's happened is we've taken all of this content and these resources and moved it from behind a paywall by paying for it to make it freely available and accessible to all patrons and users that come to our library. This is the same thing that a database does.
Right. And specifically, the type of database we're talking about here is an academic database. All right, and there's thousands and thousands of different kinds of academic databases for different levels and different disciplines, and I mean the list is endless. What you guys need to be concerned with and become familiar with are the academic databases that are designed for high school students, with high school students in mind who are assigned assignments like the one Mr. Garrow is assigning you, with you guys in mind, and that are organized in such a way to make your life easier and make the experience easier. We are only going to look at one example of a database. One of the databases we have a few dozen available to us now at North Thurston. And as we go through this process, we want you guys to remember, when we're talking about research databases, we're talking about information that's organized in a way that makes it easier for you as a 9th grader or a 10th grader or 11th grader or 12th grader, makes it easier for you to do your work. And you won't find this information organized like this via Google search anywhere. All right? And that's what we want you to remember. All right? So,
all right, so let's take a look.
Databases.
Yeah.
Let's find out what we have.
All right, so if you are over in Mr. Garrow's class or Mrs. Niles' class, over here on the left side of Canvas, this is one of the easiest ways to get to our databases. You should see the North Thurston High School Library as one of your active links over here. So
if you don't, let your teacher know.
Yes.
Or let me know, or let Ms. Casil know. We'll fix that for you.
When you click on that, it takes you to a Canvas page, which is for our library. This is protected behind sort of like a paywall, right? This is a secure environment. That's why we're able to share all these resources that cost a lot of money with you as the patrons of our school, without you having to pay for it yourself or sign in again elsewhere. So down here, you'll see that there's a link. There's lots of resources here, but we're going to look at these North Thurston High School research databases today. All of these have a password associated with them that is automatically should activate. But if you're ever doing this at home or on someone else's computer, sometimes you might need to open this up and get the password to do that. So today, we're talking about over here on the right-hand side, World Book Advanced. Mr. Coker, take this one. I'm new, so.
Right. And again, this is the only one we're going to use for this assignment. And it's a pretty straightforward assignment. Your response to this when you do this should be, this is pretty easy.
Yeah.
And it was designed that way. But we want you to understand where the resources are and how to get them. So you can see on this slide here, you've got 4 research topics you're going to be working with. And your teacher is going to work with you regarding this, specifically what they want you to do with the assignment. I think that's coming up a little later. But there are basically 4 topics. Some of you are going to be researching essentially the history and development of television as an information source, the history and development of the newspaper as an information source, the history and development of radio as a newspaper as an information source, and finally the development of the internet as an information source. So super straightforward. So we're going to make this very simple. You're going to open up World Book Advanced and you're going to type in one of those terms.
I picked internet.
Internet. And boom, you're going to see the first hit you're going to see is the internet. And go ahead and click on that. Okay. And here you have an article on the internet. Now, obviously you could look up internet on Wikipedia and get an article on the internet, an extensive article on the internet. And this is where this is where I like to do my Wikipedia, I don't know what I would call it, public service announcement.
I was going to say, yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, Wikipedia is awesome. Love Wikipedia. I think Wikipedia is one of the most wonderful things ever invented and developed by mankind. However, Wikipedia is not designed for high school students. And often what I run into when students are doing research, I by all means, use Wikipedia. All right? Your teacher can guide you on that too. But what you're going to find with Wikipedia is often it's very difficult to read, or it's poorly written, or it's way too long. It's way more information than you need. If it's a complex topic, like you're in a science class and you're looking at pulsars, I think Ms. Casilla's had experience with this.
I have.
I can't even read those articles because they're written by astrophysicists. So the problem with Wikipedia is it is not designed for high school students. This is, and can make things a lot easier for you. So anyway, just to kind of give you an idea what happens in an academic database for students, you're going to see, obviously there's an article on the internet that is going to be written at probably about a 6th grade level. All right, so it's going to be relatively simple, but there's all these little tools built into it. So in the upper right-hand corner, one of my favorites is it has a little built-in outline. So you can click on that, and I can quickly see this outline. And if I want to talk about the early internet or internet in society, you can see I have shortcuts there in that outline that'll jump right to the information I need. Okay, so that's super helpful. If you look in that little cog in the upper right, all right, you're going to see there's all sorts of things here that are designed to function well in a school, like saving the article, printing the article. Everybody should be required to cite the article. So if you click on citations, magically, boom, different citations pop up that you can copy and paste, and they're already formatted, and you don't have to worry about that. And all you have to do is ask your teacher, should I use MLA, should I use APA, or should I use Harvard? And 99 out of 100 times in high school, your teacher's going to say, I want the MLA citation. But you don't care because it's right there. You just copy it and paste it, you're done. You'll notice there's a translation tool on there. So this is pretty awesome. So if I speak fluent Finnish, there we are, and I want to translate this article into Finnish because it's easier for me to read in Finnish, there it is. All right. And hopefully you noticed that that list of languages was long and pretty exhaustive. So, okay, let's get out of the Finnish because I really can't read Finnish. So let's go back to English. Anyway, you can highlight search terms. You can play with that. Different text size if you want the text bigger. Let's see what else. It'll read the article to you if you wish to have that happen.
Let me go back to the top.
Yep. So that little feature is
a system of computer networks that links together.
I don't know if our mic will pick it up, but
mobile phones.
Yeah, it's reading, and I can change the voice. So I don't even know the voice. They're always adding different voice options. There's Joanna. There's Amy. There's a lot of voice options, which is great.
Very interesting.
So yeah. Also up there's tabs. So if you click up there in curriculum standards, that's kind of for the teachers. That'll show you different curriculum standards. If you click on media, it's going to show related pictures and graphs and things like that, and related information. You're going to see it's going to have links to different primary sources, different encyclopedia articles. If your teacher says, I want you to find a primary source for this assignment, they're built in right there. All right. All sorts of different things, and links to external websites too. So it's kind of this one-stop shopping place for your research assignment, which is great. And you don't have to spend, and the key, I'd like to kind of go back to what I was saying earlier, you don't have to worry about finding stuff because it's all organized for you in a very usable fashion. You get to get right into the research part, which is the reading part, the listening part, the studying part, the thinking part, and that'll help you get a better grade on the assignment.
That's for sure.
And save you time.
There we go.
So same thing for television, same thing for radio. Super, super easy to use.
Yep, totally.
Anything else to add?
I don't think so. You guys can do it. Remember that it takes hard work. Remember that it means reading. And then please always also ask for help. The question that you have might not be answered by Google, but it might be answered by a published resource here or by a human being who's here to help you.
Right. The key is, again, and I mentioned this a moment ago, is we want to save you time. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years as a librarian is I've witnessed a lot of students spending a lot of time searching for the magic website or the magic solution to the problem. And they're looking on the internet when they really need to be looking beneath the surface at a research database where that solution or that magic site, that magic resolution to the problem really does exist. But you just have to know where to look. And that takes work, it takes practice, and you guys will get there if you think about this stuff strategically over the next 3 years.
There we go.
Or 4 years.
That's right.
Or 2, wherever you happen to be, for the rest of your lives.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Good luck.
Have a good weekend.